Thank everybody for crazy time and your desire to still continue down the road with Cedar. And obviously we've taken a new turn in the road, which is a drastic turn, especially for this old man who's been doing the same thing for 27 years and got to try to figure out something new. It's really tough and challenging, but we'll get through it. And I'm really excited about it, and a lot of my excitement has come from talking to some of you, how I think several of you are excited about the pivot. And I think by aligning our program with SOAR is going to give us length and strength in this journey. It's going to make it more relevant for the students, that they'll be actually working and studying, doing projects with things that affects our community and the future of our community and them and their families. So I think there's a lot of positives to it, and I'm sure there'll be bumps in the road, but I'll try to get out of the way and let y'all get on through without me stopping you. I'll be the bump in the road, I know, but anyway, we'll work through it together. So anyway, I'm going to go through the packet. I know that I've sent all this to you, but I'm just going to go through each page. And as you've got comments, if you want to send them, I think chat, that Tracy was going to monitor maybe the chat room. And at the end, we can either take questions, or if you've sent any in, we can address them at that time. And I'm going to start out, and then I'll turn it over to Tracy for a couple pages of the slide, and then Katrina. And the program, as you can see, is the Cedar Future of Work in Appalachia Study Unit Program. The fair, I don't know if it's going to be the Future of Work in Appalachia Fair or what, but we'll come up with a name that is appropriate. But we're in the same 12 counties as we have been for many years. And so the first slide is we're going to show this video here. I don't know if any of you have seen this. This is a 6-minute video that Katrina did, sort of as a promo, doing the segue between co-education. Actually, when she did this, it was just economic development, okay? But after she did this video, we actually even didn't really expand it, but we narrowed it down to more innovation and entrepreneurship through the 7 pillars of the SOAR blueprint. We changed our program prompt, which I'm sure you've already seen. So we went from economic development, which is sort of like an umbrella that all this falls under. Then we narrowed it down to SOAR, the SOAR blueprint, and then with emphasis on innovation and entrepreneurism. Table of contents, nothing to go over there. It just lays out as the previous packets did. The program prompt has changed. The 7 pillars of the SOAR Summit is what you will choose one of those. You could choose more than one, but you have to choose at least one to build your unit around. And you'll see their broadband, and these explanations are just they're abbreviated explanations. It's not the full thing, but we did this just to give you a feel for what each is composed of. You've got broadband, 21st century workforce, entrepreneurship and the digital economy, healthy communities, industrial development, regional food systems and tourism, and downtown revitalization. And at the bottom, you'll see it says the approval of your unit proposal and grant request will be based on the successful completion of the program application and planning guide is outlined in the program guidelines and approved by the grant committee. So that will stay the same as it has in the past. You'll send in your instructional planning guide, fill it out like you have in the past. We'll have a grant committee that will review these just like we have. The guidelines is your task, of course, is to design a unit study that will enable students to discover how they can be a part of shaping the future of Appalachia and how that could help provide more sustainability for their community and the region as a whole. And you encourage we strongly encourage you to include an innovative or entrepreneurial aspect in your unit. And as in the past, we always encourage you to get outside of the classroom. Of course, there's a lot of outside of the classroom work going on these days. I realize that. So just be innovative yourself in what ideas you come up with on how to implement this. One thing I do want to bring out, let me see. I don't think it's on this slide here, but we have some suggested topics, and Tracy is going to go over these with you. The in red is just a topic that is a sample topic. You can choose any of these that you want for any of these pillars, or something totally different. So Tracy, if you would, I want you to go through those.
Okay, so since I retired going on 4 years ago now, I have gotten to work more with workforce than I ever imagined I would ever do in my life. And it's unique because when I was a teacher, I always tried to have students working on projects that were relevant. And if it could be a real world problem, it was even better for me, because I wanted my students to be prepared when they left our educational systems and started their own careers. And so when I started working with SOAR, shaping our Appalachian region, I had an opportunity to see some of the great work that they're doing, and they're very interested in connecting to educational organizations, but it's been hard for them to solve all of these goals and work on education. So for that reason, our partnership with them is a win-win, because it's giving us an opportunity to let our students work on projects that are relevant for our region and so real world that they could actually be working on the same problems that the adults in our communities are working on. And I personally find that extremely exciting, and I think it's going to make the units that you write and the lessons that these kids work on extremely important and beneficial, and some of maybe the best learning they do all year. So SOAR started in 2013, but in 2016 they came up with these goals, and it was based upon the things that they were seeing the greatest need and maybe the greatest areas of opportunity. So broadband is their number one goal, and they say, broadband and everything that affects. And so I can see broadband being written into all of the units that you write. It doesn't have to be, and it's not a requirement, but it's very easy to talk to students right now about the importance of broadband and high-speed internet, maybe more than ever before, because they can see how important it is if their parents are working from home, how important it is that they can access their classes online. So I think while you may not write a whole unit about broadband itself, it lends itself to fitting into lots of different goals that you might write into your unit as we move forward. So the second goal is the 21st century workforce. I say we because I feel like it's a group effort. It can't be just the people working at EKCEP and SOAR who are going to make our workforce strong. It can't be just the entrepreneurs who are out there starting new businesses. It has to be all of us working together to strengthen the workforce of our region. And so a unit written about this may be very focused on careers, teaching students about the different types of jobs in a community. I can see that happening in a primary classroom by having a career day, having families tell about their jobs, parents talk about their jobs. And I even had a teacher friend who did a flip grid, and she let the parents create the videos in the flip grid. And then they had a class library of all these different careers that the parents were able to expose the students to. And that turned out to be a great project. So think about different ways you could expose students to careers, and that can happen on all the different levels, preschool through high school. And then the third goal is entrepreneurship. And I think when we first started this, one of our biggest goals was to have the whole program wrapped around entrepreneurship, when really that's just one of the SOAR goals. But we feel like it's a very important goal, and there are lots of ways that you could incorporate this into a unit. It could be very simple, teaching what is an entrepreneur, what are the traits of an entrepreneur, what traits does a second and third grader have that lend themselves to being a good entrepreneur? Well, they're going to be coming up with lots of ideas. They're very creative, and they're able to take an idea and transform it and add what makes a lemonade stand great. I did a lesson with kindergarten and first graders. How can we make our lemonade stand better than any other lemonade stand in the community, so that all of the customers want to come and shop with you? And they came up with amazing ideas, like we could put our lemonade stand in a tree and have a tree house, or we could have fruit flavors with fresh fruit that we drop in, or we could have these crazy silly straws that come out of it. And they came up with all these ideas. So entrepreneurs think differently, and it would be really great for students to start learning at an early age that they do have those traits. What are different types of entrepreneurship? How can entrepreneurs benefit here in Eastern Kentucky based on our culture? And what are prototypes that they might make that would give an example of a business they want to start? So they could actually make a paper copy, or they could get on Tinkercad and create a three-dimensional model and 3D print their idea. And so I think there are unlimited numbers of ways you could use entrepreneurship in a unit. Either have the whole unit focus on that, or just incorporate it into a unit that hits many of these different goals. The fourth goal is healthy communities. And I think every student can probably come up with 2 or 3 ways that our citizens could benefit from being more healthy. A group of students at Pikeville High School a few years ago won a competition by creating an app, mobile application, that was going to improve the lives of people with diabetes. And it was going to give them reminders on their phone of 5 things that they needed to do 5 times. So it was maybe they sit and stand 5 times. It was very simple, but it was a great idea. And so they were able to create a prototype of that. It could be an educational program where they want to teach others about a way to get healthy, or something that they have identified as being a problem or an opportunity that they want to address. Or a medical innovation. Maybe they want to invent something that would make life easier for someone who has a disability. But the real important thing that I've found in working with students on entrepreneurial type projects where they're developing a new innovation is that they don't always know enough about the problem to make a good solution. So if you go down the path where you're going to let students create their own businesses, maybe have an entrepreneurship fair, I would highly suggest you make them research and maybe even interview people who have a problem that they're wanting to correct or solve for. One example of that is I had some girls who wanted to create a better wheelchair. They wanted a wheelchair that was lighter and less expensive, but they had never spoken to anyone who needed a wheelchair. So they really didn't know what the problems are that those people face. And so keep that in mind as you're developing these units of how can students gather information as they work through projects like this. Okay, John, you can take me to the next slide. So with industrial development, how can we increase the industrial employment here in Appalachia? Well, you can try to attract new businesses to come here, or you can try to start new industry from within. And in our talks with Jared Arnett, the director at SOAR, he says it's really important that we try to start industry from within, because people who live here and grow up here, they want to stay here and they're invested in the community. Whereas attracting business they may come for a while when the tax incentives are pretty good, but then if they're not vested, they don't stick around. And so thinking about ways that we could start businesses here in Appalachia would be a great thing for these students to start learning about. And I can really see this being a strong middle school and high school area to write a unit. Regional food systems. There are so many ways you can teach about growing food. I think a school garden is probably my favorite way because I had a school garden when I was still teaching. We actually grew food through the winter months and served the greens and the produce in the school cafeteria throughout the year. If you're interested in learning more about that, I can certainly do a workshop for you and your students. I'm happy to do that because it's a great way for them to not only learn about growing food, but it's a good way for them to learn about how to sell it, what are the products, all of the math concepts that are tied into the cost of seed versus the cost of the plants if you go to the grocery store and buy them. There are so many different connections you can make. Vermiculture, worm farming, the castings from worms are the perfect fertilizer. I can see a business in Eastern Kentucky where vermiculture and compost are being manufactured and sold. And I actually spoke with a farmer just last week, John Raymeyer, who has a farm on Prater Creek in Floyd County. And he said he has to buy his compost from places as far away as Charleston or Lexington. A lot of times they don't want to travel to bring it to him, and he doesn't have a truck large enough to go get it. And he's buying tons of compost at a time. So that's a real need in our area, especially for farmers who are doing large-scale, high-tunnel farming year-round. And so you can see all of these different ideas that I've put down here. One organization in our area at Moorhead, you've probably heard of App Harvest. They are doing hydroponics. They're going to be the largest hydroponic farm in the United States when they get that completed. And so you can really go a lot of different directions in teaching students about the differences in aquaponics, hydroponics, and aquaculture. And then finally, tourism and downtown revitalization. I think Eastern Kentucky has so much to offer. And if students really get creative, you could take this topic of tourism and downtown revitalization, connect it with food systems and entrepreneurship, and think about ways that your students could start businesses based on our region, the culture, all the things that we have to offer. I have some friends who live in California, and I meet with them every week. And before our meeting, every week without fail, they want me to tell them something about Appalachia, something about Eastern Kentucky. What have I been doing? They want to hear about my garden. They want to hear about me canning food. They want to hear about how I can it. What foods can you dry and which ones can you not dry? Things that I take for granted that people know and they don't. They want to know more about sewing and quilting. So I can see a business, and this is just my idea, of cultural appreciation through participation. So you have a business where people are going to come here, they're going to spend a week, and they're going to take classes, or they're going to get to experience Appalachian life and actually become hands-on in gardening, canning, quilting, whatever the thing is that they want to learn how to do. So I think there's just a lot of different opportunities for your units that you write. I'm super excited to see them. I want to hear about the excitement your students have, and I dropped my email there in the chat, so feel free at any point, whether it's in writing your grant or implementing it, to reach out to me for assistance or just to toss around an idea. I love doing that, and I'm happy to work with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Tracy. At the bottom, I want to point out, you see the topic you should reasonably, and that is the key word, reasonably connect to one of the 7 SOAR pillars. So we really encourage you and your students to think out of the box. when choosing a topic and making the connection. We've always been flexible in our guidelines. I've always said that we'll bend, but we won't break. We won't go to the point where it jeopardizes the integrity of the program. But we wanted to make it as flexible to fit as many of you, your different needs or circumstances. Your students are different in a lot of ways. So we just want to do everything we can to provide a program that will enable you and your students to be successful. So you just reasonably make that connection, and that will be part of the scoring system, as the judges will be looking for, as well as the grant review committee. And even if you don't ask for grant money, you still have, as most of you know, have to submit your unit proposal, and it still has to meet the guidelines. So the grant committee will be looking to make sure there is a reasonable connection, and then obviously the judging panel will be looking at the end of the program for the same. Your application is just really straightforward, and you'll do this on our website, which is different than in the past. You'll see at the very bottom there in the light blue, the new website. We still have the cedarinc.org, but we're going to keep it, for the code part, for archives or whatever, but we'll still keep it active. But we have a new one. It's FWA, obviously that's Future Work Appalachia .cedarinc.org. So it's our same website address, just with the FWA dot in front of it. And that will take you to the new site. And we started building it Monday. BitSource did, and I've been at their office twice today. It's still in the process. They do have the packet you can download at this time, and they do have the application, and they do have the instructional guide for you to do your proposal, your unit proposal. And notice the deadline there is by 11:59 p.m. October the 29th. That's what I meant for midnight. October the 29th is when your proposal and request has to be in. This is just a second page. Of course, when you go to the website, it won't look like this, but these are the same questions. This has always been on there. Anticipated length of time for your unit, number of days, hours per day, total hours. And then which of the 7 pillars of the SOAR blueprint will your unit address? That has to be in there. If you address more than one, which we encourage you to address as many as you like, whatever you feel comfortable doing, just list the ones that you're addressing. The topic of your unit, with the students be engaged in decision making about the unit. If so, explain. Then will you be encouraged or engaging others in your community to be part of it? Explain that if you do. And then Katrina, I'm going to ask Katrina to jump in here. This is her work, her handiwork, from this page on through the instructional planning guide form. And as those of you who know who has done the co-units before, she did a video a few years ago, and we always showed it at the workshops, of going through the instructional planning guide form. And so she is in the process. I think she started today, and she thinks she'll have it by this weekend. So hopefully by the first part of next week, we'll have it on the website. And every time our website changes, is updated, I'll email you and let you know what is new on there in case you need to go see that. So Katrina, if you'll jump in here and take it from here all the way through to the form that they will complete for their unit proposal.
Okay. All right. So you have seen before, you've seen the format, and it hasn't changed very much. So we'll look at that in just a minute. So a couple of questions. You have your unit goal and your unit topic, like John just said. And he said, you're welcome to use as many as you want. However, one of the things that we look for when we're scoring those or, deciding whether or not they're funded is, does your topic match your goal? Do they match? And we're always looking for it to match back. So if you list, all 7 of those pillars, but then none of your activities or your topic or whatever doesn't match with those, we're going to ask you to redo it. So make sure that if you choose, whatever goal you choose matches your topic and vice versa, your topic matches your goals. Then we have our essential questions. Essential questions should be just that. They are deep thinking questions. And again, they should be related back to your topic and your goal. And so answering those essential questions should lead students to that goal. Okay, they shouldn't be unrelated. So we're always looking for that match between those things when we're looking at your unit plans. The other thing is I'm the standard police on our team. And so we want to make sure that you use the Kentucky Academic Standards. And I'm going to paste those into the chat as well. Just so that, there's no mistake about what those are, where those are. You can go to that link and find the standards that you're supposed to be using. We have had years where we've turned over standards and people have used old standards and new standards and things like that. But the current standards that we have been around for a while. Everybody should be familiar with them, and you should be using those. Again, look at that match. Is there a match between those standards and your essential question? Will using those standards help you to answer that essential question? And one of the things that I really like about this pivot that we've done is that I feel like it opens up to more of those standards to be used. Sometimes with the Cole units, it was a struggle to get certain areas in there. And a lot of people did it very creatively and in found ways, but I feel like it will be easier with this shift to be able to address all of our standards that we have. So I think any subject area, you should be able to find standards that you can use that will help you to answer those essential questions and meet those goals that you have set. Then we have the I can statements, or you guys are all familiar with the learning targets. Those learning targets should come out of your standards. They should match back. We should be able to find those learning targets in those standards. And so then you have your I can statements that match to your standards and come out of those. You don't necessarily have to have a target for every part of that standard. You may only be teaching a small part of that standard. And so you have a learning target for just that one part, and that's okay. But make sure that it matches some part of that standard. And then we have assessments. Make sure that your assessments are assessments, not activities. So the assessment should be, how are you going to know that the student got that target? How do you know that they hit that target? What are you looking for? And it may be that you're using your activity or something that students did in the activity as your assessment, and that's okay, but tell me what you're looking for in that assessment. Okay, what are you looking for that will give you evidence that students have met the target? So again, you see there's always that lineup of all of the pieces. And then as how each target will be assessed. Okay, I'm trying to read this, it's a little small. Okay, so then after the assessments, then you have your activities. And the activities, when you tell me about the activities, I should be able to, again, match that back to the targets. Are the things that you're doing in your activities helping students to reach that target? So that's what we're looking for there, and also should lead to success on the assessment. So whatever you said the assessment was, all of those activities should get kids there. And then the supplies that are needed to complete each activity, those should line up. Okay, if you say for this activity you're going to need poster board and crayons and scissors or whatever, then that should be there with that activity. And then for your next activity, whatever you need for that. If you need to repeat it, that's okay. If you're asking for money for that particular thing and you only need it once, then you only need to list that once. Okay? All right, and so this is what that looks like. You have space. So in that first column, you have your essential question. It says 2 to 5, and believe me, that's plenty. And then for each one of those essential questions, you will have however many standards you're going to ask kids to use to answer that essential question will go under that. Okay. And then your I can statements, again, in the example, you see some standards only have one I can statement or one learning target. Other standards have 2 learning targets, or sometimes more than 2 learning targets. But again, they should all line up. And then the assessments should line up. I should be able to tell from that assessment how the students did on that learning target. So for example, on this one, the I can statement says, describe ways that people pay for goods or services. And then in the assessment product, the students are doing a comparison chart that lists 3 ways that people pay for things and the pros and cons of each. So that goes directly back to that I can statement. If I can see that assessment for students, then I know that they are successful at or not at that I can statement. So it traces right back. And then the activities for that, they should, again, I should be able to see from that activity that students are meeting this learning target, that everything that they do in that activity is leading toward accomplishment of that learning target. Okay? And then I see you have your materials and the cost for those materials. The rows here hopefully should line up a little better maybe than they have sometimes, but you should be able to put all of those rows right, everything right where it belongs so that everything lines up. Okay. John, you want to go to the next page? Do we have another page?
Yeah.
Okay. So really just the same thing. And you can look at that example and see and spend some time looking at that example to see how those, and this is one of the biggest issues that we run into when we are scoring these or, deciding whether or not they're funded is, okay, number one issue has been, are you actually using the standards, the appropriate standards for that grade level, and the standards that are actually the Kentucky academic standards that are being used now, okay? Not the old ones from a couple of years ago or whatever. So that's always number one. Then the other thing is, do your, are your assessments really assessments? Can I use this assessment to tell me if they're meeting that target? And are your targets coming out of the standard? And then do your activities lead to accomplishment of those targets and those standards? We're always looking for that lineup. And that's the biggest problem that we see when we're looking at these things is that they don't line up, or you're not using the right, that's not as much anymore because now that everything has been stable for a little while, it's a little bit easier to find the standards and know which ones you're supposed to use. So that's not so bad anymore. But once we have those right standards, are you meeting the standards through your activities, and are you assessing the standards with your assessments? Okay. Is there more of this one, John?
No.
Yeah, it just keeps going and going and going like the bunny.
For you all that have not done a unit proposal before, you will see here with each essential question is in a certain colored section. This is all blue, and then whenever you change to the next essential question, it goes to the white box there, and it just keeps going back and forth. So whenever you change your essential question, then it needs to go in the, you tab down whatever and get it in the next box area. So it's easy to keep everything together that's supposed to be together.
Yeah, good.
Before we go any further, I wasn't going to do this, but this is so important. This is really the meat of the program right here, is that I'll take a few questions if anybody has any or comments. But before I do that, the first one here that we looked at that Katrina went through, you see at the top elementary level, sample only. This is what she did just to give, especially the new people, an idea what it looks like and what would work on the elementary level. And then I asked Patrick Lester from Phelps High School if he would do one for the high school level. Patrick has been a Cedar teacher for many years. I know 20 plus, and maybe even more, maybe 25 or 26 years. I don't remember. Anyway, I don't remember Cedar without him. So he did a sample for high school. So any of you high school teachers that haven't done this before, there's a sample that Patrick did, so you can follow that. So before we move on, anybody have any questions for Katrina on this part? Okay, Katrina, you did so good. Nobody has any questions. Either they've all hung up. I don't know.
Yeah, that may be it.
Now, what you'll see when you go to the website, once you go through the application part that we've already been through, once you get to the bottom and hit submit, it will automatically take you to this in the on the website, the form that you'll fill out. Okay, and so that's what it'll look like whenever you it pulls up on the website. Here's the timeline. It's straightforward. One workshop, that's tonight. In 28 days from now is when your proposal grant request is due at the website. On the 17th of November, we will email the committee's unit proposal, your unit proposal and grant request decision back, or the committee's decision back to you about your proposal. And then whenever you come back after Christmas, 4th of January or whenever, you start implementation. Then by March 26th, you'll need to have your unit report in at the website there. And then April the 10th, this is unknown at this time, recognition awards presentation program. Hopefully it'll be in person, but the way things are going, it probably won't be, but I'm not going to say no until we know for sure. But we are planning everything with this program to be either done in person or virtually. So whatever is thrown at us, we will react and respond so that we can go ahead and complete the program. And again, this is being recorded, or at least I think it still is. I don't know if trying to do the video, I've messed something up, but if I didn't, and it is being recorded, this will be posted on our website probably Monday. But again, after it is, I'll email you and let you know that it is. And so you can refer back to it if you need to. Your unit reporting format is the same really as it has been for those of you who have done co-units before. It's just the topic is different. You'll see rather than co, you'll see economic development. Rather than co. You have your introduction, then your description of activities, and one picture per activity, and then your summary. And all that is straightforward. I mean, you can read it. Those of you who haven't done this before, and should be self-explanatory. If not, just contact me if you've got any questions. If you get a grant, when you send in your unit report, you have to send in this grant accounting report. List your materials items purchased, copies of your receipts, and do a little calculation there, see if you owe us any money back or not. When you send your unit report in, this will be the cover sheet you send with it. The coordinator awards program will be the same as it has been in the past. The same percent of scheduled meetings attended, percent of unit reports submitted by deadline, percent of teachers participating in the implementation of a unit versus number of teachers at the school, and then the weighted average percent score of all units at your school. There's three prizes. One is for smaller schools, one for medium schools, one for the larger schools, and it's $3 per percentage point of points possible. So you could earn up to $100 or $300 if you get 100% on that scoring scale. And that's just the scoring sheet itself. For the teacher awards program, it's the same as it has been. $4 for first place, $2.50 for second place, $1.50 per point for third place, Again, it's K4, 5, 8, and 9, 12. So there's 9 of those. There's 3 first place, 3 second place, 3 third place. Then the teacher of the year will receive a $1,000 cash award. When we lost Cole, we lost Myrtle Beach too. So I apologize for that, but that could not be helped. And here's a scoring sheet, and it has changed. As you will see, the very top one there, the SOAR pillar or pillars selected, and the judges will look at the degree to which the unit connected with the pillar, and then the topics addressed, number and types of topics studied, authenticity of unit, student involvement, evaluation of unit, and then cost effectiveness. And then this is just a very quick guide to your instructional planning guide that Katrina did for us a few years ago. If you just want to look at it and see what each of the 7 sections, briefly what we're looking for in that, that's just for a little handy guide. Then the last thing is instructional resources. We are in the process of still developing this, and there'll be listings on our website. There'll be internet links. There'll be printed materials and a directory of guest speakers. But you just bear with us. We're still in the process of developing all of this. And like I said before, as new items is put on the website, I will notify you of that. Any questions on any of this? This is the last slide in the packet. Okay. Any questions on any of it in the entire packet? Hello? Anybody home?
John, I'd like to ask a question.
Yes.
From a teacher perspective, I know that when we did the Cedar units, you had kind of a list of books that, that were about coal and things like that. And they were pretty common, most in elementary teachers wanted certain books and things like that. And so you would provide a copy or something like that of certain ones, a certain number of copies and that kind of thing. I wonder if teachers, right now, maybe we don't have a list of those, but as teachers work on the units, they might actually develop that list, and then as we go, we could build that library like you did before.
Good point. We do have a list, and in fact, I'll email it to you tonight or tomorrow. And it's 3 or 4 pages really, but part of it is Entre Ed. A lot of you are familiar with Entre Ed. They have a lot of free stuff. So I've cataloged it all by grade. Okay, so you can go through there and see what is available to you. And then there's a few websites, but I'll go ahead and email that to you, but maybe still in the process of being developed. But I'll send you tonight with what we've got already. And but I'm glad you pointed that out, Katrina. We don't have obviously the same material that we used to have. So, and just like she said, if you all come up with anything, please send me some information on it where we could get it at. If it costs money, that's fine. We will have funds to purchase resource materials that needs to be purchased. So just keep me posted on that if you would.
Entre Ed also has lessons that teachers might want to look at before writing their unit. If you go to the Entre Ed, it's ENTREED, Entre Ed, then go to their resources. They're called Lesson Kickstarters, and they have lessons for every grade level and all content areas. So that's a real good place to peruse and get some ideas if you're not real sure of the direction you want to take. So those are free resources. I'm glad you mentioned Entre Ed, John. I'd forgotten about that.
Any questions or comments? Surely there's some comments about somebody who's done the co-units before, how you envision this going, transitioning to this new topic. Are you excited about it? Are you scared about it? Are you tired of hearing about it, or just anything?
I think it's a great opportunity, and I think it fits really well with a lot of our new social studies standards. And and this is the direction that everything's moving to: entrepreneurship, careers, different things. So, I teach first grade, and I'm excited to be able to implement this. It's a challenge.
Yeah, well, everything's a challenge these days. Everything is a challenge. But I'm excited because it gives our students a voice in the direction our region will go. They at least will have an opportunity to use their unrestricted imaginations and maybe coming up with something that sounds wild and off the wall. But you know what? Dr. William Hamley in Pikeville in the early 60s, they said he needed to be locked up in an insane asylum because he wanted to cut the cut through the mountain, move the river, move the railroad, and do all that. Honestly, these people thought he was crazy. But right now, everybody in Eastern Kentucky benefits from that crazy man from back in the early 60s. So maybe some of our kids be looked at that way now, and one of these days, our entire region will benefit from our crazy little kids. So it's a great opportunity, I think.
It's me, Wendy. Hey, I really am proud of you all. You've put so much effort and thought into this, and I think the direction you guys have gotten going right now is really incredible. I'm very excited about it for y'all. And just to see how I can implement it, changing roles, moving to high school and working with kids who's got some different aspects and thoughts. And it's kind of interesting to see how, things can come together.
Yeah. And, this is new. We're flexible. You show us the way forward. We're not saying this is the only way forward. This is the way we want to start out. And if we see we need to move left or right or whatever, y'all just help guide us. You tell us what is needed for you all, for your students, how this program be more responsive to help you all do a better job, your students be more successful. We're wide open for suggestions and guidance. I mean, we really are. And we'll do what we can to accommodate and to help you all be successful.